With all this talk about digital currencies and eliminating cash from average daily Americans' hands, states are banning CBDCs across the country. Now, this CBDC will soon be a reality, and CBDC has been a popular topic in the news lately, and it's something that many of you have been keeping up with, and I got some really interesting updates to share. Now, you see, 2 states have recently passed laws that completely ban the use of central bank digital currencies as a legal form of tender within their borders. I mean, I just can't believe it. Now, let me give you all some juicy details. So we got Florida, Indiana, which are leading the way with these laws, and they basically redefined what they considered money. And guess what? They've excluded central bank digital currencies from that definition. It's a big move and it's making waves in those states. And if you're from Florida, Indiana, drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. I'm curious to hear, and if you heard any updates on how these laws are being implemented. You know, I've got a strong feeling that Texas might be next in line to follow suit, and I've been keeping a close eye on Texas, and they've been putting a lot of effort into expanding their gold reserves. They're really into the idea of making gold and silver a legal form of tender in these states. And plus, Senator Cruz, you probably heard of him. Well, he openly voiced his opposition to central bank digital currencies. In my opinion, I think central bank digital currencies is really an encroachment to privacy on the average American. And he made it crystal clear that he's against this so-called war on cash. Now, the goal is replacing cash with something that really easy to manipulate, and it's an interesting concept, and we may soon hear about more and more states getting on board with this initiative. And back in my day, we used to rely heavily on cash for our transactions, but times are changing, and it seems like digital currencies are becoming more prominent, especially with people using Venmo, Zelle, and all these other cash apps. And I remember when these state-adopted laws started to come into play, many people, just like you, questioned how can these laws work. We wondered what would happen if federal government decided for it to implement its own digital currency, known as the digital dollar. Would these state laws still stand? And you might think that any federal law would automatically override state laws, but that's really not always the case. History has shown us instances where states took a strong position against certain federal laws, and the federal government had no other choice but to back down. And I'll give you an example from about 15 years ago. It was that Real ID. All the states had to do it, and most of them refused to participate in it. And it was a hot topic back then, and the majority of states stood their ground. As a result, the federal government had to reconsider its plans and couldn't enforce the law because so many states were against it. And of course, we have yet to see what happens with CBDCs. If anything comes up, I'll make sure to let you know. So let's talk about these laws that ban CBDCs. It's important to understand the details, so let me break it down for you. We'll start with Florida, where the law has some interesting points. So the purpose of this law is to clearly define what a central bank digital currency is, and it make changes to the definition of money. So according to the Florida law, and I'm not going to bore you with any legality, under its code, it refers to money as an exchange by an authorized user or government, be it domestic or foreign, and it also includes monetary units established by intergovernmental organizations or agreements between countries. However, there's a crucial addition to the law which states that CBDCs are not included in this definition, which means that they're excluding CBDCs from being considered money, which pretty much is straightforward and leaves no room for confusion. Now, the new law will come into effect very soon, starting July 1st of 23, which is just over a month away. Now, let's talk about the supporting this bill that's getting support, and it's received in its legislative process, and it's gained significant backing from lawmakers. The House of Representatives have passed it with overwhelming vote to 116 in favor and only 1 dissenting vote. And there's always that one person who's not going to agree, and it is what it is. But the Senate also shows strong support, passing the bill with a vote of 34 in favor and 5 opposing votes. Now, the law in Indiana is pretty much similar to Florida. Both of them are on the same page, as we were talking before. But they have also added cryptocurrency in their law, and it specifically prohibits CBDCs and remains silent on cryptocurrencies. That's the only real difference with Indiana. But this is what I think now. And I believe it's important to consider the language of the law and how it defines certain terms. And in Indiana, It pretty much defines money as a medium of exchange that's authorized and adopted by our government, whether domestic or foreign, and is not in an electronic form, which means it's actual physical currency. Now, Indiana is similar to Florida, where they modified the definition of money in their final bill to exclude CBDCs. Now, about cryptocurrencies, and I know everyone's talking about cryptocurrencies. Well, do you know the bill that recently passed in Indiana? It's quite interesting because it doesn't specifically mention cryptocurrency, and it doesn't ban them, but it doesn't allow them either. It's like leaving the door open, if you catch my drift. So what's even more fascinating is that this bill faced very little opposition, just like the one we saw in Florida not too long ago. In Indiana, it sailed through the House with a vote of 95-2, and the Senate was unanimous with a vote of 46-0. So now here's the thing, and this caught my attention. Out of all these votes, only a handful of representatives were against banning CBDCs, and it's always important to pay attention to actions rather than just words. You know what I'm saying? In Indiana, those 2 representatives who voted against the ban were from the same political party, and that's very interesting. And in Florida, where the vote was 116-1, the one person who voted against it was Felicia Robinson, and if you take a look at her political affiliation is right next to her name. It's quite a coincidence, don't you think? Well, that's pretty much the scoop that I wanted to share, this intriguing detail with you, and feel free to let me know what you think in the comments about CBDC, and I'll see you in the next video.